There's a picture of one of the silver plated ones, cost 70 bucks, and that's today's prices. And here's another one, the gold plated one, $180. Whew, that's a lot. But anyway, the Q-ray is supposed to be an ionizing bracelet, and at one point, a few years back, it claimed that it could restore your health, relieve cancer pain, improve muscle flexibility, improve sports performance, restore energy, provide other health benefits, and it could energize the whole body instantly. And back in the year 2000, one infomercial stated, when you have a severe injury or a chronic problem like arthritis, you have a buildup of positive ions. And wherever that is, you're going to have pain. You've got these positive ions, and in order to remove this pain, the Q-ray bracelet rips it right out of your body. Okay, that's pretty dramatic. Well, the FTC eventually sued Q-ray to return money to the customers who bought it, and it didn't work. And they sued them for $87 million. Or they said they had to return that much money back to customers who bought the Q-ray. Now, you know, the Q-ray is like many of these products that are out there that probably have a placebo effect. Now, the FTC, you know, after a couple of studies, they ended up suing the company because they couldn't prove that it relieved any pain. And it says it's supposed to be an ionizing bracelet, but there's just no real physics involved there that would make it a positive or negative charged bracelet. I mean, you could have magnetism in there, sure, but you know, there are no positive or negative ions just floating through this bracelet at all times. You know, if you know physics, you know that's not going to happen, and that's what some independent researchers also found out, was that the Q-ray bracelet, it wasn't ionized or anything. You know, it's just it's a pretty bracelet. You know, the gold-plated one, I'm sure it costs a little bit to make that thing. But, you know, if you're going to spend $180 on it, you know, I don't know if it's going to improve your health. Anyway, because they were sued by the FTC and other customers a few years back, now you go to their website. They still sell it, but their website doesn't make any health benefits whatsoever. However, if you go to retail stores, you will find the Q-ray bracelet, and you will find that they have the retailers will still claim health benefits. If you go to a store, you find the Q-ray bracelet, they'll tell you it's just like getting acupuncture. You know, it's similar to Chinese acupuncture. It relieves pain and this stuff. You know, and I've seen testimonials. Sure, people say, hey, it works great, and some people put it on, got rid of their arthritis pain. That's awesome. Maybe it's a placebo effect, but hey, if people find it and it works and it gets rid of their pain, fine. However, as we all know, the placebo effect only works in about 30% of the cases, or 30% of the time. And it doesn't seem to have any magical powers. So, going in the way back time machine a few years back to the Q-ray bracelet. You can still buy it today, but they don't claim all the health benefits that they did back, say, 5-10 years ago. Well, I'm going to now get our guest on the phone, who is Hugo De Garis. So, just hold on while we dial China here. He's a professor of artificial intelligence research at Wuhan University in China. So you'll hear me dialing here. You'll hear the Skype dial tone. Just hold on a second. Get your questions ready. Here we go. Let's see. It was coming through very good earlier on, so hopefully... Ooh, that's pretty loud, huh? I might have to turn that volume down a little bit. Okay, it's ringing. He should be here soon.
Hello.
Hello, is this Professor De Garis?
Yes.
Yes, hello. This is Justin Lowe again, and I just want to welcome you to the Sunday evening update program, where tonight we're going to focus a bit on artificial intelligence research. And first of all, what I like to do with most of our guests is to get a little bit of background information, just a little bit about how you got involved in artificial intelligence research and how your career has progressed, say, over the last 10 or 20 years. There's a little intro here, if you could.
Okay. Well, I'm in my 60s, so I'm one of these mid-career swishers. I was in industry for a while and got a bit bored.
Okay.
I think I was 40 years old, decided to go back and do a PhD. And AI was getting quite popular. Let's see, when was that? 87, yeah, it's about 20 years ago. 87. So I started a PhD, got a PhD in artificial intelligence,
Okay.
which I thought would be a really cool area. And then the 90s in Japan, I started off as a postdoc. And there was a lot of money in Japan in those days.
There was.
So I thought I and a million other economists thought Japan would probably win in the sense of catching up to the US. But it didn't happen. The Japanese talk about their lost decade because their economy just went flat. Then went back to Europe for a little while. Had to live through the 2001 dot-com crash. So the lab I was at, the brain building machine that I was building, the guy who was building it, he went bankrupt.
Oh.
My lab went bankrupt. So then 5 years in America, and then a really fabulous offer came up in China. So it was very hard to refuse. And it's more and more like that. So now I'm in China. I live in 7 countries. So
7 countries. Now, I just have to make
yeah, more than a year each.
Okay, I just have to make a little observation here, is that unfortunately, it seems bad luck is following you around as far as like in Japan. I remember that during the 80s and early 90s that, everyone thought they were going to come to dominate the world as the largest economy, and then it didn't quite happen. And then in the United States, we had a lot of positive buzz going in the late 90s with the technology boom, the internet boom, and then that kind of went bust. What is your feeling at this moment on China, as many people in the last 3 or 4 years thought China was going to just continue growing at 15% a year, and they would be the dominant culture, dominant economy in the world. But obviously, the entire world now seems to have encountered a recession. How are the Chinese dealing with that? And do you still think that their economy is going to dominate the world? Let's say.
Well, I guess you could say most people would love to have China's problems, because the problem they're talking about this end of the world is that their economic growth rate is going to dip, and I'm not kidding, dip to 9%.
Well, yeah, I guess if you put it that way, it's still doing pretty good, 9%. That's pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
That is pretty
dramatic. I mean, yeah, there is some effect, of course. I mean, for example, I heard recently that about half of the toy companies in Shanghai, for example, went bust. They went bankrupt.
And just in the last year?
There is some effect, but the government here is planning that it won't be too much. But longer term, the big question that worries me is, at the rate China's growing, sooner or later it will go democratic. I mean, this has happened in literally about 100 countries the past half century. So there's so much experience on this democratization, that there are huge data banks that you can tap and try to make generalizations about. So connecting to artificial intelligence, you can do knowledge discovery. And one of the really interesting things that comes up in this 100-case experience is that when an economy goes more or less over $6,000 to $8,000 per person per year, that's when they switch. When they switch from a one-party dictatorship to a multi-party democracy.
I've heard that.
You can calculate that when in China. When will that happen in China? And the answer is more or less about 10 years. So my big question is, this transition, is it going to be? There's 2 major types of transition. One is the government's just pushed out by external force, by people power. Classic example is the Philippines a couple of years back. Or the most common one, about 3/4 of the cases, is some faction, some democratic faction within the party seizes power when there's some crisis.
Right.
And that's usually a much smoother transition. So I'm just wondering, is there going to be violence? Is there going to be a war when China makes this transition? Or is there some democratic faction inside already, just waiting in the wings, so to speak? Some future Gorbachev in China?
Yeah, yeah.
And about 10 years, I think about